Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar video. This is going to be my next Avatar fan commentary track, and this one's going to be for Book 3 Fire, Episode 13, The Firebending Masters. So continue to recommend other episodes from Avatar and Korra you would like to see me do in future commentary tracks. I have noted every suggestion that has come in, but there is a long list at this point, so I'm getting through it. So no need to suggest the same one you suggested before, but by all means, if you have seen someone else suggest something that you also want, then do it. That way I know multiple people want that one and I can sort of prioritize it. But yeah, if you want to sync up your copy of the episode with this commentary track, have your copy of the Blu-ray, the DVD, or whatever copy of the episode you have ready to go. And as I finish up this intro, I'm going to stop, pause for about 10 seconds, and then start speaking again. And when I start speaking again, that's when I will have pressed play, and it's when you should press play as well. So I'm going to stop speaking just now in a second. When I come back after the pause, you hit play and I'll hit play, and we should be synced up. Okay, so here we are with 313 Firebending Masters. And I really like this episode. It's an amazing lore episode with the dragons and so on. It's not one of my absolute favorite episodes in that, looking at my ranking list, I have this at the number 22 slot. Very, very high up in the B rank, so not quite the absolute top tier. And that is purely just a case of there are so many amazing episodes of Avatar. You keep in mind that the majority of the back end of Book 3 is super highly rated. Most of the finales from each season are super highly rated. Plus there's, those individual episodes that really stand out, like the Guru, the Blind Bandit, the invasion from earlier on in this book, Boiling Rock, and you can see why, 22 seems relatively low. But given how much of the series I rank highly, 22 is still really, really high up on the list. And I think this is a great episode to get into some of the philosophy of bending. Finally, Aang takes another attempt at learning firebending after the previous sort of failed attempt with Zhong from Book 1. And they reference that here with the idea of, ultimately Zhong wasn't the right teacher for Aang. He was a little bit overly cautious himself about his firebending. And while Zhong is a master, one of the old masters, as we find out, he probably wasn't the perfect teacher for Aang, who needs a specific type of teacher. And Zuko is at the point where, he would make a good teacher for Aang, and we're going to learn about it here. So we finally have it starting off here. And yeah, he just starts off, let's see if you can do any amount of fire. Just go for it. But no, just a little puff of smoke. And Zuko's like, oh yeah, I'll show you some cool stuff. Just take a couple of steps back. I'm going for this. And it's okay, it's fire, but it wasn't really up to much. And even Zuko's like, what? Nice. Just the contrast between Zuko, who sort of beats himself up over everything, and Aang, who's very positive about nearly everything. It's such a great dynamic, and that's the thing. This is the Aang Zuko field trip episode, and it's just so fun to finally see these two as friends. And a little bit of the awkwardness because it's sort of new friends, but you can see where it works. Kind of felt hot. Then the Sifu Hotman, because obviously the whole Hotman thing, they did use it in the Fire Nation, but it was more of slang than anything, so it wasn't really used by everyone. So it's just really funny to see Aang go by the old style. And yeah, Sokka sort of used to Zuko is just yeah, I'm gonna make some jokes at your expense too, just like everyone else. And he has to make the big announcement to the group here. And I love how the group just don't really react. I've lost my stuff. I just think he didn't take it, but by stuff, what he means is his drive behind his firebending. And we see how Haru, Teo, the Duke, and stuff like that are with them. And of course, Katara's having a little bit of a, enjoying that at the expense of Zuko, what's going on. Because she still doesn't trust him yet until 316. And then, yeah, here we go. What drives this firebending? This is a very important, dynamic in Avatar. That your emotion, your personality, it affects your bending. It affects you physically. And then, yeah, really annoying by Sokka. But that's not enough to bring the fire out. And yeah, he doesn't want to rely on hate and anger and just pure power for firebending. And then this is fantastic here. I think people forget this and always remember the Oma and Shu stuff about the origin of bending. And they completely forget that Toph's backstory includes the fact that she learned from Master Yu prior to this little bit of backstory she's going to tell us about here. Original benders were badger moles. And here we go. The badger moles. Such great animals, and the fact that they're both blind. Of course, Toph wasn't around when we first met the badger moles. But they were in the episode she was in, like the Earth Rumble, they used badger moles, so there's a nice connection. And that's it. Bending is about making the raw ability an extension of yourself. Not just about fighting. Interacting with the world. And that's what bending for a bender is meant to be. An extension of themselves. Not just an ability to activate, but when fire is around, it is part of them, basically. And then Aang refers to Appa. It was just like, yeah, you teach me some stuff, buddy. But of course, Appa cannot give anyone airbending. He doesn't have that ability. The animals cannot give the raw ability. They can only teach the core style. But yeah, the dragons are the original firebenders. Ancient Sun Warriors, some really cool history we're getting here. I was like, yeah, where are the dragons? Like, Roku had a dragon, but yeah, we really haven't seen other dragons in the series apart from Avatar and the Fire Lord. It's definitely related to firebender culture, but now, of course, we know that the whole tradition of hunting them, the Dragon of the West, and so on. Shadows of the past felt by the present. And yeah, he thinks the civilization is extinct. He thinks they're just going to go there and find some ruins. He doesn't expect to find them actually thriving. But yeah, they need to do this. Otherwise, where is he going to learn firebending from? And so here we go. Field trip time. And Zuko's just like, I expected Appa to be a little bit quicker. Upbeat attitude. And here we go. And again, this is a fire island. This is not the main landmass of the Fire Nation, but the Fire Nation itself is made up of a bunch of islands fundamentally. So this is one of them, and it obviously goes back to old Fire Nation history with warlords on different fire islands and how it links into the idea of the Fire Nation pretty much sticks more or less to the central capital. The reach of the leadership kind of doesn't extend out as far as you'd think, so it allows stuff like this to still kind of exist secretly. Places like Bonte Village is obviously another fire island, and this, can be as they are. And yeah, why does it still work? Because they're still active. Really cool move though from Aang to dodge it, and then of course some nice video game kind of platforming there from Zuko to get over it. And yeah, just really great kind of background shots here showing us this location. And here we go. Sun Warriors. Obviously we know the first person to learn from the dragons was Wan, but this is obviously the first sort of group civilization to do that. And really make it a thing and part of history. And here we go. Here's the explanation. Yeah, Sozin started the tradition. Obviously, I think in the transitional point after the death of Roku and his death, that's when he did it. And that's why Iroh's Dragon of the West. And then we'll find out Iroh didn't do what he said he did. yeah, Nang's like, good. And yeah, complicated past. Tell us about that, please. Everyone wants to know the full story of Iroh's past. Kind of suggests that, like, does Zuko know it all? Who knows? But yeah, this is just cool because you get to see this sort of, rune exploration style things. Just these little kind of puzzles and traps. It feels like a little bit video gamey, some of those adventure style movies that you'll see. But linked into Avatar with the idea of like, oh yeah, solstice style stuff as well being linked into it. Position of the sun, it makes sense, it's the Sun Warriors. And yeah, always the solstice. And then yeah, here we go. Zuko being quite clever here. And yeah, they're in. So we're used to these type of doors activated by different things. But here we go. This is great. Fourth wall breaking here. Zuko looks like directly at the camera here, as if to say, like, see, the main character thinks I'm cool. And then here we go. Here is the form of the dancing dragon. The most kind of clear-cut exploration of just the idea of this is the best technique in a way to utilize firebending at its best, directly taking its form from the way dragons move. And it's a cool kind of piece of machinery here, the way it works with the. And yeah, I want you to dance with me. The mechanisms on the floor. Obviously, this is more of a sort of ceremonial, traditional type form. It's not really, you don't use these exact moves in combat, but it teaches you like the style of, punching and forms to use, basically. You can see elements of it, the hands outstretched, that's sort of like the lightning redirection kind of pose. And yeah, here we go. Is this Druk? Is this Druk right here? Is this the sort of the fruition of the purple dragon theory, which didn't turn out to be purple, but, the same idea of it? Like, why else would this rise up? Is it really just a gold egg? But as Zuko touches it here, feels almost alive because it likely is a dragon egg from Ran and Shaw. Now, we don't know that for sure, but if they are the last dragons, as they basically confirm in this episode, it would have to pretty much be their egg. Unless they confirm something to us about dragons and the fact that eggs can take like many, many years to hatch. Like, we know of baby dragons because, of course, the Dragon Days comic from Lost Adventures, like, we saw a kind of a dragon egg there as well. They're not gold, so the idea would be that, like, this is maybe a dragon egg encased in gold. I think the dragon egg being Ran and Shaw's also sort of contradicts the sort of theory that some people have that, like, oh, are Ran and Shaw perhaps, like, spirits in mortal form? I don't really buy into that because I don't think there's enough evidence to really suggest that. I like the idea of a sun spirit, as some people like to kind of think about, but I don't necessarily think it would be in the form of a dragon, because obviously spirits can't have bending necessarily, so I think that sort of contradicts it. But I wouldn't rule out the idea that it could be some form of other animal. And just a little bit of Iroh stuff coming in there from Zuko. It's nice to see that, like, just normally, pretty casually, he says some of that stuff as well. And so here we go, the chief of the ancient Sun Warriors. And yeah, these things cleaning off all that goo. And they call it the Sunstone as well, which is weird, but it's like they say it's alive, so is it the egg? It's the only thing that explains where Druk comes from. Like, it has to be Druk is born from an egg, so they're holding on to it pretty well. And here we go. And here we go. The Avatar and the Crown Prince of the Fire Nation. And I like that he says that, like, he used to be. And just tells them honestly about, like, I want to change the way I do my firebending. And yet they're here. secret. Obviously not as like vast and big as they used to be, given that they live in a pretty big place and most of it is ruins. It is secret still. And it makes sense, they have to be smaller to stay hidden from the main Fire Nation, otherwise they would want to steal, I suppose, the secrets of this organization, this group. And yeah, they'll have to pass the test. But yeah, going back to just the topic of sort of your personality, like issues like that you're dealing with affecting your physicality and your bending. We've seen multiple examples of this. 218, the Earth King, like Zuko gets physically sick from the decision that he made. That's an example. Lynn has something happen to her in book 3, in the episodes where she deals with her past. She also kind of gets ill and has to get like acupuncture to kind of get through it. Plus, you know, she gets over it once she kind of deals with her past. And then you also have the general idea of like avatars with their opposite element. And here we have the idea of like Zuko with what drives his firebending. And Aang with the correct way to power his firebending as well. And yeah, here we go. This like the first flame, basically, in a way. This like ancient legendary flame. And yeah, it's all about control. Holding a small flame and keeping it at the right size as you go up the mountain. And emphasizing that like Zuko was probably going to have the tendency to overdo it with the flame, and Aang is probably going to have the tendency to underdo it with the flame. So that's the idea here, and it fits their personalities. And yeah, it's life, not just destruction. Kind of highlighting, you know, that just like that contrast, like the Fire Nation as it is now, like Ozai and so on, Sozin, have gone about it one way and have forgotten completely the other. Yeah, too timid. That defines Aang in a way. You're a talented kid. And he is. We know Aang is a very talented bender. That he actually did seemingly adapt to firebending relatively quickly, even from the little bit we saw with Zhang. It's just dealing with that control and how he deals with like that loss of control from that episode and doing it the right way. And yeah, your ancestors are responsible for it, but he isn't. And ultimately, the chief here is actually pretty nice. And he's just kind of giving them a little bit of a warning before they go up. You know, just that like they might not be so merciful. But yeah, the flame has been delivered. And obviously, it's a very different Fire Nation culture here. But they have to face the Masters here. And I like throughout all this that like they're not really clear about like what are the Masters? Are they just people who are gonna walk out, or what? They don't know it's like dragons yet. And yeah, here we go. The drums. It was just really intense. It's like, oh, what's gonna come out? What's gonna come out? And again, just a nice little bit on the animation of Aang is always keeping his flame smaller than Zuko's. A lot of steps. You do wonder like how old the dragons are. Like, is it just a thing where dragons can live a very, very long time? I assume that probably is the case. It probably is the case for most of the sort of, you know, original bending animals. That they have the ability to live like at least like over 100 years. But yeah, here we go. And yeah, Aang's dropped his flame at this point. And I love this, like, just little argument between the two of them as they're waiting for the dragons to come out. Give me some of yours. And they're just having this argument up the top, and the Sun Warriors are just like, these two idiots are going to get themselves killed here. This is the Avatar and, like, the prince doing this. And then here we go. I suppose ultimately it's like the actual ritual of it doesn't matter as much, really, I suppose, is the idea. Once you're there, you'll get judged. And here we go. One blue dragon, one red dragon. We don't know which is which, just that they're Ran and Shaw. Now, some people like to be like, oh, Ran, red, that must be him, but we don't actually know, so that's just an interesting point. Yeah, and this guy thinks they're gonna get killed. Everyone's thinking. But yeah, and you can see the dragons are basically doing a little bit of the dancing dragon, and Aang begins to notice this. It's a very fun dynamic seeing Aang and Zuko just like be working together like this. And so yeah, here we go. And yeah, I love this thing of just in the background they are doing the same move, just in the form of a dragon. It's such a great shot, and obviously they kind of echo that in beginnings with like Wan learning from that white dragon. And yeah, there we go. That was the correct thing to do. And here we go. Seeing the dragons actually do their thing. And this is highlighting. Dragons don't just breathe fire. They do actually bend it. Like, this is true bending. The fact that they're making like a spiral pattern and that they can make multiple colors and stuff like that in the flames. Highlighting that it can be beautiful as well as, you know, destructive and life and everything else. It's just a visual showcase of like fire is much more than you think. And that's all they needed to be shown. And that's always great to see. Like, we know the badger moles directly do bend. We know the sky bison bend as well, because they can like basically just hover in place without even moving. Like, they don't have to like do anything to just like float. So it is actual, the animals do actually bend. Harmony. And they understand. Worthy. And here we go, the big reveal about Iroh coming up as well. Yeah. And he was here as well. I'd love to see that story. Iroh coming to the Sun Warriors. And he was judged worthy also. And he protected the dragons. And here's Aang learning that lesson. Energy and life. Like the sun inside of it. Do you guys understand this? He's like, yeah, it's in the name. I like the sense of humor from this chief. He was serious initially, but he's actually like, he's got some of that Iroh humor going on. And yeah, Zuko understanding what will now change of his inner fire to power his firebending. And his fire is different now after this point. It is more powerful than it was initially. And yeah, look at that. Kind of like these spheres of really powerful fire. And even Aang's kind of early sort of beginner blast there was quite powerful. And yeah, another great joke. Just kidding. And then I love the comeback bit with just like, but seriously, don't tell anyone. Because of course, you know, if they tell everyone about it, like, they don't want people coming there. They don't want everyone just going to see the dragons. A dance. Tap dance our way to victory. Sacred form. What's it called? I love that line from Katara. And yeah, he's gonna have to get used to this as part of the group. He's a little too serious right now, but it's working pretty well. So yeah, I think it's a fantastic episode. Obviously, it is very much like a sort of side story, but it's a good side story. I think that's probably one of the only reasons like I can't rate it like super high, but it's one of those episodes where there's very little to sort of complain about with it. It's just that it is not the most important episode, and that there are episodes that are better than this, but for what it is doing it pretty much as well as it possibly can. So it's just purely out of importance within the episode. That's the only real reason it's not rated, like, for me, like, incredibly highly. But you know, that's always the case when you make a list like that. You have to make some hard calls. There's going to be those 10 episodes, and you may feel like it's terrible that one of those episodes has to be placed at the number 10 spot, but they're 10 very good episodes. So like the order of them, you know, if you want to make that order, it has to have meaning to it, and for that to work, something has to come out in the bottom. And even then, like this one, like I said, very high up, like 2 or 3 from the top in my second tier of episodes, the B rank episodes. And yeah, it's got that lore to it. I think any episode that focuses on like the dragons, the badger moles, the sky bison, always has my interest, and I think a lot of people's interest. And then just learning other stuff about Fire Nation history, with the whole stuff about the dragons, hunting the dragons, more about Iroh's past, that makes him so much more interesting. Plus just the character focus on just Aang and Zuko friendly together for the first time, basically. It's a pretty big deal with this episode. So I think everyone remembers this episode, and I think that's probably the best thing to say about this one, is that it is a super memorable episode because of what happens in it. This is not an episode people forget, I think, because it is the Dragons episode, and that's kind of hard to forget when you're talking about Avatar. So yeah, a lot of these sort of, you know, field trip with Zuko episodes are fantastic, and this one with Aang here is very good. So yeah, they're my thoughts on the episode. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on this one. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.